So if you were kind enough, folks, to click on the link below the video, then you have found yourself on this hitherto unlisted hidden gem of a video, aka the boring maths part for putting together a tank. It has to be done if you want cones and cylinders and the like. So without further ado, folks, we'll dive straight into where I cut the previous video and enjoy. Cheers. Okay, folks, I've sent the kids to bed. They might interrupt me. Bear with if it happens. I want to run through the mathematics behind designing the tanks, because of course if somebody else is following the channel for exactly that reason, I said I'd share everything, then this is exactly that. So if you're not into geometry or you don't have any tanks to design, you may find this section somewhat tediously boring. Other than that, let's crack on. Okay, so the tank I bought from Darren last week, or the week before, was a 400 litre stainless steel tank. It is, I think, 1.5 mil stainless sheet, and 1.5 mil is available in varying sizes. The size that is required to make a 400 litre tank with one run is 1000 millimeters high by 2500 millimeters wide. So when that sheet is rolled, it will form a cone with C, the circumference, being 2500 millimeters, and H, the height, being 1000 millimeters. So I've spoken to the fabricators, and the biggest stock sheets at 1.5 millimeters they can get and fit into the rollers that they have is 1250 by 2500. Therefore that will give me a C, a circumference of 2500. Believe it or not, there was a policeman at the door asking about something that's happened further down the street. So as far as I can recall, we're talking about the size of the new sheet of stainless steel, which would be 1250 by 2500, therefore giving us a circumference around the base of the tank of 2500 millimeters, and of course the height, H, is now going to equal 1250. So I am cheating. The radius is the circumference divided by 2 times pi. So if we plug in the numbers, R equals 0.4, which equals for us 400 millimeters. So from that then we know the diameter of the circle, so D is going to be 800 millimeters, and then we can also solve for the volume of the cylinder, if you're still with me, which gives us a V of 630 litres. So that's considerably bigger than the 400 litres we were going to start with. If you followed me through that, well done. It's about to get a little bit more complex. So now that we know we can get a 630 litre, there's my dyslexia, a 630 litre cylinder, each tank will require 1 times 1250 by 2500 by 1.5 millimeter, 304 stainless sheet. You can go 316 if you like, but we're making a boil kettle here. I don't think we need 316 for this, for instance. And then we come to the issue of the cone on the bottom of the tank, because we want to be able to clean in place with these tanks, but I don't want it so cumbersome that we're standing really high on legs and we're losing a lot of height, so I can't get into the top of the tanks. For instance, the mash tun doesn't need a cone half as deep because we want to limit the dead space in the top. So we're going to look at 3 different types of cone here, ranging from 14 degrees, which would be this angle here, all the way up to 45 degrees. Now, when I had the tanks at IVB, we had a 60 degree cone, which worked well, but it meant that the tanks were really high and they were 4.2 meters tall. I want to keep the height down on these tanks, so in order for us to figure out what we're going to do, I've made some models. Right, the models that I've put together are out of paper and they're of a scale of 10 to 1, so I've just taken a 0 off of everything, 2,500 millimeters to 250 millimeters, and this is what we've got: 3 cones. And as you can see, which is going to make the best fermenter, which is going to make the best mash tun, which is going to make the best boil kettle, and we've got a good example for each here. So I would say to you that the 14 degree cone would probably make the best base for a mash tun. The 32 degree cone would probably make the best base for a HLT or a boil kettle. The 45 degree cone is probably the best for a fermenter, and of course you could step up to a 65 degree cone or a 60 degree cone to help that yeast and slurry fall out. But to ease everything across the board and make sure that I can fabricate everything in one hit, there are less cuts for the fabricator, there's less confusion, I'm going to go for the 32 degree base, which is plumb in the middle. So we're going to work out what we need to make that cone, which is a bit more geometry, but it's pretty simple. Right, in order to make any cone, you want to start with a circle and sketch out a circle on this piece of paper, which I think you'll be able to see. And then I'll just put a dot in the center. So we want to figure out exactly what is required to fold this up into a cone, which means drawing a line straight through the center point like so, and then determining what angle we're going to cut out to, like a bird beak shape out of the circle, to fold up into a cone that's going to be of some use to us. So, and also we know that the radius of our tank is 400 millimeters. The radius of the cone, the stock for the cone, is going to be larger. So if we want to end up with a 400 millimeter circle on the top of the cone to weld onto our cylinder, we have to make sure that we figure out how deep we want the cone to be, and we've already figured out that we want 32 degree angle on there, and how big a diameter the circle is going to have to be before we cut it out. So there are a few online calculators that you can use to help you do this. That's what I've used, and basically you have to plug in 2 main principles. The first one being the base radius that you want to end up with, and we know that our base radius is going to be 400 millimeters, and then the height of the cone. So if you've got a cone like this, for instance, we want to know how high that cone is from there to there, and to achieve 32 degrees, the height is 250 mil. One of the first things that the calculator is going to pump out to you is something called the slant height. Now the slant height of this particular cone, which we are going to use, comes out at 472. That's our new radius for the new circle. So we know that this R from here to here is not 400 now, but it now equals 472. That's a start. Now what we need to figure out is the size of the cranes bill to cut out from the centre. So what I would recommend doing is going to this website called cleavebooks.co.uk. You punch in your base radius of 0.4. It's difficult to see. You punch in your height. This 250 mil is called the perp height. Perp height, I don't know what that stands for, which is 250 mil, so that's 0.25. And then that's all you need, just two units to calculate. And the angle that we're going to have, the S angle is the angle that we're going to be cutting out here, the S angle. So what it's given us actually is an S angle of 305. That's not the bit we cut out. That's tracking all the way around for us, all the way around, and it leaves us there. So we have to do the math. 360 minus 305. So this is 55 degrees. So let's take the scissors to it. The models to make sure that the math ties up, that it works in theory. And then we chop out our angle in the centre there, and then all we're going to do is bring these two edges together like that. We've all done it, and then we have a cone. So that cone will then fit nicely onto the top of our cylinder, a Chinaman's hat style if you like, and it all works. I'm happy. So now I have the numbers that I have to give to the fabricator. So I have to tell him I want one of 1.5 millimeter by 2500 by 1250 sheet, rolled into a cylinder, and then I also can tell him that I know the size for the base. So we know the radius was 472. Well, if we double that, we get the diameter, which equals 944 millimeters. So he needs a square of steel on a side, 944, to cut out the circle and the cranes bill to make the base. So if we order a piece of stainless steel sheet that is 2 meters, 2000 by 1000, then we'll get the base and we'll also get a lid. So we can cut out the circle for the lid as well. And we'll ask him for the offcuts. We want to keep the offcuts, don't we? And we can do that across the board. And then I'll just get him to weld up and tack up the cylinders, so we end up with our little conical fermenter. And then he can send it out to me, and we can hopefully get the rest of it welded up at the unit. There are, of course, going to be on here a cut at the bottom, because they can't roll a cone without having a hole in there. The size of that hole will be determined by the diameter of the rollers that the guys are using at the fabricator's yard, but we can shrink that down by using a concentric reducer. We can also add an extra outlet here for pulling off the beer below the line of the wort. Won't be that way really, but you know, you get the impression, below the line of the wort. And then we can add more things. We can add a manway. We had manways in the other tanks because they were huge, but these will be able to be picked up and moved if need be. And the fact that they're full draining as well, we can just lean over the top, squirt inside and clean them. Well, I kind of hope that made some sense to you. It's been one of those days today, going to visit the accountant, going across to the fabricators, and then I really need to get this put together and sent off to them so I can go to work tomorrow without having to sit in front of a computer screen, apart from the edit of the vlog, of course. It makes it quite difficult to get actually out the house and do anything else. So unfortunately for you, or fortunately if you're into this kind of thing, that's going to be it for the vlog. So we're going to wrap it up for today, and we'll see how things turn out tomorrow. Cheers, folks.